For over 10,000 years, humanity has worshipped him as a god. Billions pray to him, entire armies fight in his name, and countless worlds have been conquered beneath his banner. But the strange thing is, the Emperor of Mankind never wanted to be a god. He wanted humanity to become something greater. He wanted to unite mankind. He wanted to protect humanity from the horrors of the galaxy. And to accomplish that goal, he would conquer worlds, create genetically engineered super soldiers, and raise 20 Primarchs to lead his armies. But eventually, the Emperor's own son would turn against him, and that betrayal would leave the Emperor trapped upon the Golden Throne for 10,000 years. So how did we get here? Well, this is the story of the Emperor of Mankind. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Grimdark Journey. Before we dive into the Emperor story, if this is your first time here, welcome. If you are returning, thank you for coming back. So I'm gonna keep this simple, pretty new to the whole world of Warhammer 40k myself, and that's really what this channel is about, and my journey deeper into the massive universe. I'm learning the law of building and painting my first armies, playing the Warhammer video games, and eventually I want to get into tabletop as well. I actually never played a game yet, but I've been learning and painting and building miniatures. And as I learn more about this universe, I want to take what I'm learning and sharing these stories with you. So whether you've been into Warhammer for 20 years and you're completely new like me, I hope that you come along for the journey. And I figured if we're going to start diving into Warhammer lore, there probably isn't a better place to start than with the man, the myth, the legend at the center of it all, the Emperor of Mankind. And to understand how he ended up sitting upon the Golden Throne, we have to go back in a very, very long time ago. Long before the Imperium, long before the Primarchs, long before Space Marines. We have to go back to ancient Earth. The first thing you need to know about the Emperor is that his origins are surrounded by mystery. Even in the far future, much of his early history is unknown, hidden, or disputed. But one thing is clear, the Emperor is ancient. In the current Warhammer lore, he was born on Earth thousands of years before the rise of the Imperium. Long before the Great Crusades, long before Space Marines, long before Primarchs, before the Imperium even existed. He lived among early human civilization and witnessed humanity slowly develop. And unlike ordinary humans, the Emperor possessed immense psychic power. He was a perpetual, a being capable of surviving injuries that would kill an ordinary human and over time returning from death. As humanity continued to develop, the Emperor remained largely hidden. He watched, he learned, and he waited. For thousands of years, the Emperor moved through human history. He witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations. He saw humanity discover science, build empires, wage war, and eventually reach beyond Earth. Humanity eventually spread throughout the stars, and for a time, mankind achieved incredible technology advancement. But the Emperor understood something that most humans did not. Humanity was not alone, and one of the greatest threats to mankind existed in a dimension that humanity could barely understand: the warp. The warp could be used to travel between distant worlds, but it was also the home of powerful entities. Entities that fed upon the emotions of ancestral beings, the force of chaos. Eventually, humanity's golden age came crashing down. Warp storms spread across the galaxy. Human worlds became isolated from one another. Worlds that had once been connected could no longer communicate. Civilization collapsed. Technology was lost. Wars erupted, and humanity entered an age of darkness. This became known as the Age of Strife. Earth itself descended into chaos. Humanity was divine, and this is when the Emperor finally stepped out of the shadows. The Emperor returned to the forefront of humanity history. His goal was simple: unite Terra. The Emperor began what would become known as the Unification Wars. He created armies unlike anything Earth has seen. Among them were the Thunder Warriors, genetically enhanced warriors created to conquer Terra. They were incredibly powerful, but they were never meant to be the Emperor's final army. They were a weapon for a specific purpose, to bring Earth under one banner, and slowly the Emperor seceded. One by one, Terra's rival powers fell, until eventually the Terra belonged to the Emperor. But the Emperor wasn't finished. His eyes were no longer focused only on Earth. He was looking toward the stars. The Emperor knew that conquering the galaxy would require something far greater than the armies he had used on Terra. So he created the Primarchs, 20 genetically engineered superhumans, each one designed to be a leader, a warrior, a commander, and most of all, a son. The Emperor intended for the Primarchs to lead his Space Marine legions, but before he could use them, something went horribly wrong. The Primarchs were scattered across the galaxy. Their incubation capsules were taken from the Emperor's laboratory and scattered across distant worlds. The Emperor had lost his sons, but he wasn't willing to give up on them. The Emperor began the Great Crusades. Humanity would once again spread across the galaxy, but this time he would be united beneath the Imperium. The Emperor and his armies conquered world after world. As the Crusade expanded, the Emperor began finding his lost sons. The Primarchs were discovered one by one. Some became loyal generals, some became great administrators, some became incredible warriors, and some would eventually become the Emperor's greatest enemies. Among all the Primarchs, one of the most important was Horus. Horus was one of the Emperor's most trusted sons. He became the leader of the Lunar Wolves, and eventually the Emperor named Horus War Master. The War Master would command the Great Crusades while the Emperor returned to Terra. The Emperor had a secret project to complete, a project that would change everything. The Emperor understood that humanity's dependence on the warp was dangerous. So beneath the Imperial Palace of Terra, he began construction something extraordinary. A human-controlled gateway into the webway. If successful, humanity could travel through the galaxy without relying on the warp travel in the same way. The Emperor believed this could help protect humanity from chaos. But there was a problem. The project required the Emperor's full attention. So while the Emperor remained on Terra, Horus continued the Great Crusades, and eventually, Horus would fall. Horus was wounded, and while recovering, he was manipulated by the forces of chaos. The War Master, who had once fought for the Emperor, began to believe that the Emperor had betrayed him. Horus turned against his father, and he wasn't alone. Other Primarchs joined him. Entire Space Marine legions turned against the Imperium. The Great Crusades became a civil war. Brother fought brother, Primarch fought Primarch, and humanity became tearing itself apart. This became known as the Horus Heresy. But while the Emperor fought to hold his webway project together, things beneath Terra were becoming a nightmare. A catastrophic breach allowed the forces of chaos into the webway beneath the Imperial Palace. The Emperor was forced to divert his attention toward containing the disaster. The webway project was failing, and the Horus Heresy was spreading, and the Emperor's dream of a united humanity was collapsing around him. Eventually, Horus brought the war to Terra. The traitor legion surrounded the Imperial Palace. The siege of Terra has begun. For months, the palace was under attack. The defenders were pushed further and further back, and then came the moment that the Emperor had been fighting towards. Horus lowered the shields of his flagship. The Emperor knew what that meant. He had one chance. He had to confront his son. The Emperor teleported aboard Horus's flagship, and there the father confronted his corrupted son. Horus was no longer the warrior the Emperor had known. Chaos had transformed him into something monstrous. The battle that followed was almost impossible to comprehend. The Emperor was one of the most powerful beings humanity had ever known, but Horus had been empowered by chaos itself. And for a moment, the Emperor hesitated. He saw his son, not the monster, the son he had created, the son he had trusted. But eventually, the Emperor made his decision. Horus had to die. The Emperor destroyed Horus, but Horus had already done catastrophic damage. The Emperor's body was broken. His life was fading. His greatest son was dead. His dream of a united humanity had been shattered, and Terra itself was devastated. The Emperor was brought back to the Imperial Palace, but there was no way to save him in the traditional sense. there was only one option. The Emperor was placed upon the Golden Throne. The machine that had once been part of his Webway project now became the device that kept him alive. For 10,000 years, the Emperor has remained there. His body is little more than a corpse, but his mind still exists. His psychic power continues to guide and protect humanity. The Astronomicon allows humanity's ships to navigate the darkness of the warp, and the Emperor's presence continues to hold back horrors that would otherwise consume Terra. And while the Emperor never wanted to be worshipped as a god, humanity eventually turned to him as one. And that is what makes the Emperor such a fascinating character. He wanted humanity to become independent. Humanity instead became completely dependent upon him. He wanted humanity to reject superstition. Humanity built a religion around him. He wanted to protect mankind from chaos, and his own son became one of Chaos's greatest champions. He wanted to create a better future, and instead the Imperium became a brutal, apprehensive civilization locked in an endless war. And that's the story of the Emperor of Mankind. For his mystery beginnings on ancient Earth to the Unification Wars, the Great Crusade, the creation of the Primarchs, the betrayal of Horus, the Horus Heresy, the Siege of Terra, and finally, the Golden Throne. 10,000 years later, the Emperor still sits upon that throne. His Imperium is surrounded by enemies, chaos is still waiting, and humanity is still fighting. The Emperor wanted to build a better future for mankind. Whether he succeeded, well, that's where the story gets complicated. And this is only probably the beginning of his story.